and the answer is presented to you right there. There's no scrolling page by page, trying to find the link on Google and checking this out, checking that out. And it's a tool that should be used by every business out there in some capacity to do market analysis, to increase productivity for their employees, to use threat detection analysis, that sort of thing. Companies that are not using AI yet, they're going to quickly lose traction in the market if they don't adopt it soon.
Shannon, I couldn't agree more. Even just from my social media and marketing and podcasting background, I use it as
Yep.
kind of my companion to throw ideas off, give me the pros and cons, and just kind of work with it as another helping hand. And so I can only imagine in the IT space and
Yep.
how invaluable that is. Join me, Jeremy Swick, on Into the Unknown, a podcast that delves into the personal journeys, stories, and experiences of individuals across diverse professions. As a historian by trade, I firmly believe that our personal histories shape our present and offer valuable insights into our paths ahead. With that being said, let's get into it. On this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with a very special guest, Shannon Gordon. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing awesome. How you doing, Jeremy?
I can't complain, man. I thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
And I also appreciate everyone, I appreciate you being flexible. We've had to reschedule a few times and, we'll get into that a little bit, but I think so much about life is just being flexible and rolling with it when things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So, Shannon, before I kick off the show, I always like to talk up the importance of networking. How are we connected?
Right. So I've been working with Olivia Atkin of Achieving Success for a couple months now, actually almost over a year now, to be honest with you. And she highly recommended you, said that we should have a conversation.
I always appreciate Olivia. She works with me on a lot of things, and one of the things she does is she always brings great people to interview. And I'm always interested in what stories. And I think so much in networking and in life is when someone you know and trust approves or recommends someone. I think it just adds that extra level of excitement.
100%.
So let's jump into it. I want to know that comic book issue number one, that origin story. Who are you?
Sure. Well, I started off as a child. um, no, I've been, who am I? I'm pretty much an IT geek, have been my entire life. I've been banging on the keyboard since I was about 7 years old. My parents bought me my first TRS-80, and that's an old Radio Shack computer. If you're familiar with them, most people aren't, but yeah, it was the thing to have at that time. So I started right into it. Started writing my own games, letting my friends play, etc. And pretty much been into computers my whole life.
But I want to know what got you into computers. You said you mentioned it. You got into it at a young age. Was that something your parents just happened upon, or was it kind of something that you had already shown interest in?
I had already shown a lot of interest when I was a child, and they uh, just on a whim for one Christmas, they went on. They got my sister and I a computer, and I was just enamored with it. I couldn't get enough. So to the point where they made me get off of it. At night. Like, all right, man, you gotta go to bed. So yeah, I don't know what it is, but just seeing seeing what you can make them do, and seeing the capabilities of them, I just find them fascinating.
So a lot of kids growing up play a lot of computer games, play on the
Right.
computer. But what made you start to really dissect it? And as you mentioned, you started making your own video games.
Yeah, so I've always been that kid that take things apart, and not necessarily play with the stuff, but I always took stuff apart to see how it worked, and computers were no different, right? So I always wanted to know, all right, what's going on behind the scenes here, right? So um, yeah, so they actually got me a magazine subscription to, it was a TRS-80 Radio Shack magazine subscription, and in there they showed you how to actually write games. So looking at the code and then starting to look at the games that I had and games that my friends were playing, I started piecing things together and saying, okay, if this code does this, then I think if I had this code, I should be able to make this character do this. Bear in mind, these were very rudimentary games at the time, right? I was not out, building Halo or something like that. Just very basic, Pong, make the dot go back and forth across the screen type games.
I think it's one of those things though that today's generation, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. There wasn't a Google in the sense of, oh, when I don't know this code, I can look it up. A lot of times, I'm sure it was referring back to that magazine you had.
Absolutely, yeah. This was pre-internet, pre-Google, pre-anything, right? Um, my for the TRS-80, I had a whopping 16 kilobytes of memory in it, um, and I thought that was absurd. There's nobody ever going to use that much memory in a computer, but look at where we're at now.
It's
And you're
fascinating.
right. There was no way to. There was it was me just as a young kid, just picking through the code, trying to figure it out myself. There was no Google or anything to reference.
I think it's one of those things. So you had mentioned, obviously, at a young age, you started playing with the computers, taking it apart, writing your own code. Now, when you went to college, was that something already on your mind? Had you kind of either, well, whether you admitted it or not, that is kind of where your interest was when you went to school?
Yeah, when I went out to college, I know that's exactly what I wanted to do is just stay in the computer field. I started college in 1991, and computers are really just starting to become really mainstream at that point in time, especially in the business world. And even in my young age, I could see a future, and I could see that this is going to be huge, right? This is every business in the world is going to need this technology or enhanced technology, and just in order to function. So that's why I went into college, or that's why I went into that curriculum in college for sure.
So what was that experience like? As you mentioned, computers are really just coming on the scene. Nowadays everyone has a laptop or a Surface or a
Yeah,
tablet or a phone.
right, right. It was tough. It was tough. I mean, this was a using some really old languages like Fortran, Pascal, some of which are actually still in use today. But um, you know, again, it was the troubleshooting of writing code wasn't like it was today. You would literally you would write your code, and then you would send it to the college printer, which is this giant dot matrix printer, and it would print out these reams of paper, and you would have to sit down with a highlighter and start going through it to see if you could figure out what the problem was, why it wouldn't compile. Um, and God forbid the printer was backed up and the lab was getting ready to close. That too bad. Those days you couldn't afford to have your own computer at your house, right? I mean, you're talking at the time $2,000-3,000 for a computer, which would be equivalent to, I don't know, 15,000-20,000 today. So not everybody just had one. So you had to rely on the labs that were at your disposal and the printers, et cetera, that were at your disposal.
So
But it was
you
a good
did.
time. It taught me a lot, man.
Oh, I can only imagine a lot of times when there isn't really a safety net of Googling it or restoring from your previous start point. It's one of those things where you it really is trial and error.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you nailed it. It just change this line, try to recompile it, look at the error, okay, it's still not working, go through, change this line, and when you're writing programs that are sometimes 1,000 or so lines of code or more. uh, it was maddening.
So you finish up college. What is your next move after that?
Well, as I said, right, I started, um, well, I'll be honest with you. So I was trying to figure my life out, what I was going to do as a bartender, uh, in the college town that I worked at, and this guy came in. We got to talk, and he said, "Look, my company is it was actually called Golf Digest Information Systems. They're looking for somebody to join the help desk. Just help customers out. They had written this. its time revolutionary program that would connect regional golf courses to the hotels, and it would allow the hotels to book tee time reservations onto the golf course's tee sheets. So yeah, cool, I can do that. So I did that for almost a year or so, and then I just kind of worked my way up from there. I graduated from the help desk into systems administration. I moved from at the time I was living in Pittsburgh. I moved from there down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where it was golf at the time was really mainstream down there. So I worked on their system down there. It was the same system that I had helped support. Golf or Grand String Tea Time Network was one of the big subscribers to that system. So I moved down there, helped them with their systems, learned about wide area networks, um, uh, multiplexers, and terminals and all kinds of stuff at the time, right? I moved from that into doing systems administration at a hospital in South Carolina. Uh, Big Unix systems. They ran all their healthcare management systems on Unix. So I was the Unix administrator. So I was like the bread and butter of the hospital. Then I moved to Colorado, where I worked for IBM. Uh, did infrastructure architecture for them, capacity planning. Eventually worked my way up and became an enterprise architect for IBM, helping their clients. And then from there, I moved on from IBM, started my own company, and that's essentially what I've been doing now. I'm actually in the middle of relaunching it. Like I said, it used to be called Five Nine Computing. I've rebranded it to just Five Nine, and I've expanded from. Well, let me digress for 1 second.
Are you good?
I started Five Nine Computing because I saw a need in the market for companies that were looking to uh, enhance their availability of their applications and their infrastructure. So five nine in the IT industry means 99.999%. And that's to measure availability. And what does that mean? Well, if you can achieve a five nine availability on a yearly basis, that means you have less than 5 minutes of downtime per year. So it's highly available applications. This is strictly for mission critical applications. Usually, those are the ones that are need that type of the type of availability. But that's the benchmark to meet in the IT industry is five nines. Um, so I recognize that there was nobody really focused on providing that level of availability to their applications or to their clients. It was just kind of brushed over in a broad sense as they were doing IT consulting. Um, so I started to focus solely on that. Now, as I'm rebranding, I'm essentially expanding into other areas as well. I do cloud. Mostly everything I do is in cloud. Into modernizing data, modernizing applications, modernizing infrastructure, building hybrid environments where I build the customer's data centers with to integrate with cloud environments, so you have a little bit of both worlds. Um, and of course, into AI, I've just started working into the AI space, which is just exploding in the market right now.
I was going to ask you because as you know, AI has been exploding and it seems like it's rapidly changing every second. When you
Yep.
started in the IT field, how quick were some of those changes going on? Because you entered at really when it started to become mainstream.
Hmm. Yeah, it was so Moore's law said that basically, computing power, computing capacity will double every 18 months. Um, I think I don't even know what the benchmark is now, but it's got to be every 3 months. You know, just the hardware that runs these systems is just exponentially improving. You know, on a day by day or very rapid pace, and along with that, the technology that sits on top of the hardware is also constantly changing, and that's um, it's next to impossible to keep up with. To be honest with you, it's really mind boggling that things that I was doing just last year in in computers are now considered outdated. nobody does that anymore. Nobody does it that way anymore because now there's this new way that's come out, and this is what everybody's moving to, and just keeping up with it is kind of mind boggling sometimes for sure.
I can only imagine, especially you involved in IT and tech and knowing what AI is capable of. And I think we're still learning and still discovering. What are
Yes.
some ways that you've been able to use AI as kind of a way to help you or a way to understand your clients better?
Yeah, it's an invaluable tool now. I'll be the first to admit that I rarely go to Google anymore. ChatGPT is the one that everybody's aware of, and that's the one that I use the most. I find that that's the best overall AI platform for just garden variety use for daily use. But as I said, I don't go to Google anymore. Anything I want to look up, I go to ChatGPT, and the answer is presented to you right there. There's no scrolling page by page, trying to find the link on Google, and checking this out, checking that out, and it's a tool that should be used by every business out there in some capacity to do market analysis, to increase productivity for their employees, to use uh, threat detection analysis, that sort of thing. Um, Companies that are not using AI yet, they're going to quickly lose traction in the market if they don't adopt it soon.
Shannon, I couldn't agree more. Even just from my social media and marketing and podcasting background, I use it
Yeah,
as kind of my companion to throw ideas off, give me the pros and cons, and just kind of work with it as another helping hand. And so I can only imagine in the IT space and
yep.
how invaluable that is.
Yeah, 100%. There, there's AIs out there, or there's tools out there now. Watson Code Assist, for example, Code Assist. That's a tool that will just essentially write code for you, or it'll help you write the code. As I mentioned, I would have killed to have that. When I was going through college, and now it sits right alongside your developers and watches what they're doing, or helps them modify and write the code that they need, to basically accelerate your business, accelerate your go to market for your applications.
I always encourage people, whether you own a business or not, at least just experiment and play with it because and much like as a historian, once you open Pandora's box, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's not going away. So I always just
Right.
encourage people to kind of explore and just understand what is coming and how. I don't see it replacing humans. I don't think I think the robots ultimately win, but I think we're still quite away from that. I think it's just finding ways for us to utilize that as an asset.
Yeah, we're a long way from Skynet. Yeah, for sure. But it is kind of crazy to look at. Look at some of the possibilities, with the self driving cars and stuff we have now, and fully automated warehouses. Like, Amazon. I had the pleasure of touring one of Amazon's fulfillment centers, and these things are just everything is automated, right? You're just watching little robots run up and down the aisles and picking, you know, uh, box stuff, and everything is right there on a screen, on a big dashboard for you know the distribution center to maintain or just monitor it. It's crazy. So I think automation could displace some human labor jobs, um, and that's unfortunate. But this is kind of the way of the world is.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there are people, when the automobile came out, there are people who had jobs dealing with the horses and the
Yep.
stables and things like that. And I think overall, I think humankind finds a way to adapt. Of course, there will be changes. And one of the reasons I encourage people to explore those changes. So you're not, you're sitting in your old ways or the outdated ways and just learning something new.
Yeah, yeah, that for sure. And I deal with that at some of my client sites. To be very honest with you, is that there's some legacy individuals out there who just refuse to adopt new technologies, and they're going to be left behind, unfortunately.
Hmm. I mean, I
Yeah.
always tell people I'm not in the business of convincing you. I'm explaining to you what we can do, how we can help, and it's kind of up to those, those clients or whoever they may be to either accept
Mm.
that change or stay away, stay away from it, and that's all right too. It's just understanding that you're going to lose your traction in the market.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, well said. It's not for everybody. And I guess it depends on what your motivation is, but you don't have to adopt it, but you got to realize that this isn't, this is the way of the future. It's not, um, your way of doing things is not going to be the way of doing things in the next 5 years.
Hmm.
So,
So, Shannon, on everyone's journey, they make a decision. You can go east, you can go west. Make a decision, go for it. Can you give me a time in your life where you just went for it?
yeah, right. Literally, I went west. Literally, I went west. I was sitting in, like I said, I was living in Charleston, South Carolina, and this job popped up in Boulder, Colorado, for IBM, and I just said, "I'm young, I'm single. What do I got to lose right now?" So I packed up a few things that I had in a U-Haul, and I headed west, and that was in 2001. So been out here in Colorado, and which I would argue is the best state in the nation in terms of um, things to do outside. And if you're an outdoors person at all, Colorado's a place to be. Just absolutely love it here. It's where I met my wife. Um, so that was my go for it moment, if you will.
Absolutely. And I have to give my props to Colorado. I was in Denver last weekend, actually, for
Yeah,
a rugby conference. And then my sister lives out there too. And I'm excited to come back and visit. I think that was the first time I'd been there as kind of an adult. So I'm looking forward to going back to Colorado.
yeah. Last week was chilly, if I recall.
It was pretty cold. It was pretty, but I'm from Wisconsin. So
Ah, yeah, you're
being cold
fine.
is pretty relative.
Yeah, yeah.
So if people want to learn more about you and your business, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my new business address is 59.co, so co. Everything's on there. There's a contact form on there. There's a way to get a hold of me. Um, my 800 number's on there. By all means, just shoot me up, or I'm on LinkedIn as well, um, personally. So if you want to look me up on LinkedIn, it's just Shannon Gordon. I'm one of the few Shannon Gordons out on LinkedIn right now. Be more than happy to take any calls or any queries at all.
Absolutely. Well, Shannon, I wanted to say I appreciated you taking the time to talk with me today. I'll make sure to
Yes,
link
sir.
all your info in the show notes. And again, thank you, man.
Thank you. It was great seeing you, Jeremy.
Fun episode of Into the Unknown. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen. And if it provides you any value or entertainment, I would love if you shared it with others, liked, subscribed, and really just help the podcast grow. Again, tell a friend, tell a foe, just anyone who might enjoy hearing some stories of people's own journeys and what got them to where they are today. Till next time.